All right, so welcome to our session titled Diving Deeper into Core, and today we'll be focusing on formative assessment and differentiation. I think you all know us, Jessica Wolf, Intervention Coordinator, and Nicholas Taylor, Assistant Principal.
I couldn't hit the mute button fast enough. Yes, you all know me too. Good morning.
All right, so our objectives for today's session, hopefully y'all will leave, like Mr. Taylor said, feeling a little bit better about these topics and have some focus here. So we're going to review the purpose of formative assessment and some best practices. We're hoping that y'all develop an understanding and are able to discuss what to do with formative assessment data. We're going to look into what differentiation is and some examples of what it is not. And you will also be given the opportunity to start differentiating one of your own assignments, which is why we asked y'all to either bring something with you or to be thinking about something you're going to start planning. So just some quick norms for our virtual space. We do ask that you mute your mic when you're not speaking. Keep your camera on when you can. That way we can see all of your faces. We can all engage as much as possible. Try to balance your participation and stay active. We know it's 8 o'clock in the morning. We know everyone has a lot going on, but we really hope that you find some value in this session, and we would like for you to participate, whether in the chat, in the Pear Deck, or unmuting your mic. Feel free to share your ideas and ask any questions that you have throughout. And also, we know if you need to take care of your needs, please feel free to do so. All right, so we are going to start with a journal in your Pear Deck. So I'm going to give you about a minute or so, and I just want you to write about why should our classrooms and lessons or assignments not be one size fits all.
Miss Wolf, while they're writing, see if you can make breakout groups. For some reason, it says the owner has to do it or the host, which is weird because that should be me, but.
Did someone get here before Mr. Taylor?
No, I was signed on for probably 15 or 20 minutes before anybody else.
I was in the little waiting room before Mr. Taylor, but I didn't come in.
So see if you might be the owner at this point, Martin. You might need to set up our breakout groups for us. Or Mr. Taylor, we can just do some separate codes if that's easier, since we don't have a lot of participants.
Yeah, we could always just add ones to it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I am not.
Sorry, Martin.
I am not the host.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll do some separate codes. No worries, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll work on that, Mr. Wolf, on the chat. I got it.
All right, so we're just going to review a couple of responses. So let's see what we've got. So no student is the same, so why should our lessons be the same? Totally agree. Should not be one size fits all because our students are not one size fits all. We have a number of different people coming to us from a number of different situations. They learn differently just the same way as we do during these PD sessions. Totally agree. One size never fits all. There's no one size class. Every student is different and our instruction needs to cater to those differences or it will not reach all students and they could be left behind. Ooh, the difference between equity versus equality. Love that. Who shared that? I would love for you to elaborate a little bit.
The students aren't the same, that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that was it's kind of the idea that what each kid needs is not the same. So I think it's the don't judge a fish on how they can climb a tree type of thing.
Good quote. You may see that somewhere else in our presentation.
I think I've seen it in a lot of PDs. So,
not all students learn in the same way. So this person thought of his brother, or think of my brother and myself. Students shine in different areas. Totally agree. Everyone's got different strengths. Unique needs. All right, so y'all really hit the nail on the head here about what we're about to work on. We know all of our students have different strengths and different areas of need. They all come from different backgrounds and places, have different experiences. So we really need to think about that as we're planning our lessons. All right, so we are going to do a little pre-assessment or formative assessment of our group here. So in the Pear Deck, we just want to know, how do you currently feel about using formative assessment data in your role and differentiating instruction? Or if you're not a classroom teacher, how do you differentiate either PD or different meetings, those types of things. So just drag your star. We've got 9 of 14 responses. Oh, can't see the memes. There we go. All right, so nobody's on the ain't nobody got time for that meme, which is good to hear. But even if you feel that way right now, we are hoping that some of the things we talk about and some resources that we provide you towards the end would help you move to the left-hand side of this meme spectrum. We will revisit this at the end just to see if any of our thoughts have changed, but most people are between you feel great and please, I need help.
So some of you may have seen this before, and if you haven't, this is something that the district has put out. They put it out a few years ago, but it really talks about the relationship between your content, the teacher, and the student, and how none of them stand by themselves. So if you think about you, the teacher, if you're just doing your own thing, hey, I'm teaching, I'm not making connections with the content, I'm not making connections with our students, we're not going to have that optimal student achievement. Okay, so when we think about our core instruction and that fidelity of that instruction and our instructional practices, what are those specific learning experiences that as the teacher, we can take the content to provide that learning experience for our student, and how to make all of those and the relationship between them work together in order to have our students really be able to access that content and have access to that teacher so that they all work together. So we're going to give you a minute or two here. So what is the purpose of a formative assessment? I believe Ms. Wolf, they're typing in a response on this one, correct? And if anybody is so inspired to just start talking about their answer and not typing it, I'm completely fine with that too. We'd love to hear some voices with this as well. All right, Ms. Wolf, let's take a look at some of these responses that we got here. To measure student growth and content, this is a data point. Okay, good. To help with that remedial support. Fabulous. To gather data in real time. Absolutely. Yes, it's that real time data, right? It's not that summative assessment that comes afterwards where it's, oh, we got to go back now. It is that real time in data that we are using. Low stakes progress monitoring that can help the teacher adapt their instruction. I like that. Yes, we need to adapt the instruction. That's the purpose of a formative assessment. It's the goal of it is be very intentional. I'm giving this to see if my students understand this. Here's where we are with this standard so that I can know where to go from there. To gain awareness where students are and understanding of content without penalty. That's right. Formative assessments are for feedback. Okay, it's for feedback so the student understands where they are and where they are in that learning process, and helps you understand where that student is in that learning process so you can adjust your instruction. Gauge how the student's doing, to gauge to see where students are in knowledge acquisition. It's not punitive. It's to gather data. Gathering data is that great first part, and then it's taking that data and how are we changing our instruction afterwards. And that's going to get into a lot of that differentiation and things like that when we get into that core instruction that we're going to talk about. Helps us to formulate instruction based on where they are and what needs improvement. I love that, how to formulate instruction. Skills the student have mastered, improve upon, get a better understanding of okay. Give feedback for your students. Absolutely. That feedback is very important. If our students give us a paper and a week later we just give them a number on it, that's not feedback that they can use to get any better and to grow. Those formative assessments are good, quick ways to provide feedback for students and be able to say, hey, great job on this. We're really getting this concept. Let me help you let's grow this area. How are we going to get from here to here? Let's do this in order to support you getting to that next step. So it gives you that really specific on how to support the students.
All right, so we wanted to just review some different types of formative assessments. I think a lot of times we immediately think exit tickets, which is a good one, but there are lots of different quick ones, some that require really no pre-planning that you can just do in the moment. So we're going to go over these 6 different types, and as I'm going through them, just think about how many of these you have used within like the last week or so. All right, so we've got temperature checks. So there's all different types. So that could just be a quick, hey, thumbs up, thumbs down, how's everybody feeling? And virtually, if kids aren't turning on their cameras to do a thumbs up, thumbs down, you can use the emoji keyboard in the chat and have everyone put in a thumbs up, thumbs down. Same thing with 1 through 5. So on a scale of 1 through 5, how are you all feeling? Same thing, if people don't want to turn on their mics or you're not using a pair deck, you can always utilize the chat if you're virtual. If you're in the classroom, everyone can hold their hand up with 1 to 5 fingers. Colors, so think about, all right, green, you're good. Yellow, like proceed with caution, slow down, I need some help. And red is basically stop, I need that explained in another way. So you can also use writing as a formative assessment. So you can have students journal. So that could be a journal at the beginning of class. It could be something at the end as a reflection. There's different protocols, the KWL chart or 3-2-1. And then I like this idea of a 1-pager activity that I've seen. So at the end of a lesson or a standard, have students basically write down everything that they know or understand about that topic on 1 page of paper. So they can use definitions, they can draw pictures, they can put specific dates and times if we're talking about things in history. So just a really good way for them to kind of like brain dump everything that they have. And then those are really good to use for review, especially at the end of a semester. If you have 1 page on every standard, it's not going through a whole notebook or a whole Canvas or Google Classroom site. Questioning itself can be a formative assessment, and that's not always teacher to student. So if you're listening to students talk to each other, what questions are they asking each other? Observation is a formative assessment. When we do breakout groups virtually and we're just watching and listening to what our students are saying, and the same thing in the classroom when we walk around and we're just seeing what they're doing. That's a formative assessment to gauge where they are. Exit tickets, I think everybody knows kind of what that is, something at the end of the day, just a quick question so you could quickly sort, okay, these kids got it, these kids need more help, and then how do you differentiate from there? And then we like the idea of self-assessments also, so you can do that using rubrics or really quickly in the pair deck like we did earlier with those memes. Where are you feeling on this spectrum? That's a self-assessment. All right, so I want everybody in the chat real quick on scale of 1 to 6, so there's 6 different types here. Just think about how many different types of formative assessments have you used with your students in the last week? And I'll give you all 30 seconds. Okay, so lots of 4s, some 3s. So this is a nice kind of bank of ideas. If you haven't used some of these, there's some good ones to try. And then I would love if anyone wants to unmute and either tell me if you used a different type of formative assessment or if there's one on this list that you haven't done that you would consider trying. Okay, Miss O'Hara likes the one pager.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one that I haven't been using is like any sort of writing, really. Like the other ones kind of fall in naturally, but writing I could use a little more.
Okay. And Taylor adds a thumb sideways. I love that. So it's like you're not 100% good, or it's not all the way down, but sideways, you feel okay. I love that. All right, so some best practices when we're talking about formative assessment. So Nick already touched upon this a little bit when he talked about the difference between grades and feedback. So if you give a student a 70% on an assignment, and that's the only thing written on that piece of paper or in Power School, how are they supposed to know what to improve on? So we really need to think about, okay, it's fine to think about number grades when we're talking about summative assessments and big projects and things like that. But those little checkpoints along the way in different formative assessments, it's more important, and the kids get more value out of hearing what they need to work on or what they're doing really well so that they can improve. When you do those formative assessments, think about what concepts need to be retaught. So when you're sorting those exit tickets, did 90% of your class really not get this concept? That's something you need to cover again. Think about how you can differentiate your groupings after you've done a formative assessment. So if you plan a whole group activity, but only 1/3 of your class really needs it, the other 2/3 is not going to be engaged. And it's not that they don't care or they're not interested, but the instruction's just not appropriate for them. So if we differentiate properly using our formative assessment data, then hopefully our student engagement should also increase. And then one last thing, think about ways that you can reassess to give students another opportunity to demonstrate success. So just because they didn't get it on that first exit ticket or that first formative assessment you did, doesn't mean after you've retried something that you shouldn't formative assess them again on that same topic.
So this is kind of like our shifting point. So everything we've done so far has really been, formative assessments. How do we know what our students are understanding or not understanding? And we've gone fairly quickly through this because you guys have shown that this is something that you're fairly comfortable with. You've been able to provide examples. You understand the why behind formative assessments. You're doing, you know where we're going. So now we're going to make that shift. Great. We've done a formative assessment. You've all done 2, 3, 4, 5 of them in the last week. Now what do you do? So you have this data. Whether that just be, hey, you know what? I was listening to this group talk. I understand what they know, don't know. I saw this. I did this. Great. So do I just keep doing the same thing for everybody, or what are the shifts in that instruction that we're going to make? And that's where we're going to really get into spending most of our time is, I have this information. Now what do I do with it?
All right, so I think some of y'all probably know who this guy is. He's a principal and a public speaker. He's pretty funny, but he has really, really good information and knowledge about education, just puts a funny twist on it. So we're gonna just listen to this quick video about him sharing some things about differentiation with us.
I've just come from my favorite store, the Dollar Tree, and I have some suggestions for a party if you would like to have some educators over to your house this summer. They got some great ideas. They got these pineapple cups, these coconut cups. You could have a Hawaiian theme party, but I have an even better suggestion that's going to blow your mind. You can get these great cups at the Dollar Tree, and I know what you're thinking. That's just a red Solo cup. Let me show you something. Boom. They have a different size. Wait, one more time. Boom. Differentiation party. You can meet the needs of all your party goers. Some people just need a regular sized drink. Some people don't need that much drink. Some people need a big old drink. You can meet the needs of all your party goers with these great red Solo cup from the Dollar Tree. Think about all the possibilities at your differentiation party. You can differentiate the food. You could have some wings, some barbecue wings, a little bit spicy. For those that don't like spicy, you could have some honey barbecue wings. For those that need some extra spice, you could have some of them 5-alarm Tabasco wings. You could differentiate the heat in your wings. You could have some meatballs, and you could meet the needs of those that don't eat red meat by having turkey balls. And you can meet your party goers' needs by having some tofu balls for those that are vegetarians. You can even differentiate your dip. You can make one of them 7-layer dips with the refried beans and the salsa and the onions and cheeses. You could differentiate and make a 6-layer dip, maybe leave out the onions. Then you could make an 8-layer dip, maybe add some extra festive cheese. You could even differentiate the time of your party. You could have your party from 7 to 9, invite all the fun people from 7 to 9, but you could actually invite the wild, crazy people from 6 to 9 because they can handle some extra time. Then you could just invite the fun people, a little bit boring, that can't handle a big old long party. You could do them from 8 to 9. You could even differentiate the time of your party. I'm telling you, there's a lot of things you can do at your differentiation party. Starting out with these great cups from the Dollar Trees. Go out, you get you some. You're going to be the talk of all the teachers at your differentiation party.
So a little bit silly, but Mr. Brooks really was thinking about the needs of all of his party guests when planning this differentiation party and when he's going to go to the Dollar Tree. So we really need to think about the same types of things when we plan our lessons for our party guests or our students. So what are their needs? What are their strengths? What are their learning styles? How do they learn best? It's a little silly, but I think the point is there. All right, so this graphic kind of shows the different ways that we can differentiate for our students. So again, differentiation is just the ability for us to meet the needs of a variety of learners, right? So you have those 25 to 30 something kids in your class and you need to meet their needs on a daily basis. So how can I really differentiate? So you can differentiate in 4 different ways. So I'll just review those. So content is what they need to learn or how they access the information. The process is what activities the students engage in to master the content. So not everyone needs to look at a PowerPoint. Maybe someone else can do an ed puzzle. Maybe someone else is reading an article. The product is how students demonstrate what they have learned. So I think a lot of teachers do this using things like a choice board, giving students different opportunities to present their learning. And then the learning environment. So think about the climate, the tone of your classroom, how learning is structured. Think about how you group students. Those are all how to differentiate the learning environment. So we can also think about students' readiness, interest, and learning profiles when we differentiate. So when we group them or when we plan activities. So readiness is what is their current skill level or where are they right now in terms of what they know about this standard. So you can use a pre-assessment or some kind of formative assessment early on to gauge that. You can think about their interests. So what choices do they want to make? What is their background? What are they passionate about? What motivates them to learn? And then their learning profile. So different brain intelligences or their preferred approach to learning. So some of us are visual learners and some of us are auditory learners. Some of us need to be moving around while we learn. Some of us learn better by ourselves and some learn better in groups. So just thinking about those things as we plan.
So for this slide, it probably looks really small if you're still looking in the Pear Deck. You may want to click back over to the Google Meet to be able to really see this slide. We apologize, it didn't appear bigger in the Pear Deck. But I really like this slide, and thank you, Ms. Carter, for sharing this resource with us. I'll give you full credit for this one. So this really lets us know what differentiation is, and also really importantly, what it's not, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around it. So this is a slide that you can draw on. So I'm going to give you just a minute or two. Take a look at both sides. You can highlight, circle, put a check, star, write, whatever you'd like to. What stands out to you? What is something that just stands out to you that speaks to you like, oh my gosh, like that, I hadn't thought of it like that?
All right, Mr. Taylor, I'm sharing some responses if you want to.
That's awesome. I like that this person, one of the things they notice is that it does not mean just give students a choice. Yeah, we don't have to just give students choices all the time. That, you know, differentiation can absolutely go beyond that. I'm also making it bigger for me. Require teachers to plan something different for each student. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. People are like, oh my God, I'm spending all this time planning. How am I going to do something different to meet every individual kid's need? This kid needs it. That's not what it is. You know that you're going to have groups of students who have similar learning gaps, or who need similar challenges, or who need similar opportunities to extend our content. Honor student readiness at different rates. Absolutely. Yes, we know that some of our students learn at different rates, are ready to accept information at different times. And that could be because of background knowledge with that particular topic. It could be because somebody didn't get any sleep last night because they had to take care of their younger sibling. It could be any number of reasons, the same reasons that we all come to work some days a lot more ready to roll than others as well. It takes too much time to implement. It doesn't. What it does take is thank you, Ms. Dotson. It takes intentional planning. It's something that you and your PLT intentionally plan for. So it's not that it takes all this time. It just takes that intentional thought of, okay, hey, look, not everybody's going to probably get this. What are we going to do? So you have a plan. So when that formative assessment comes and, oh, this group didn't get it, I know we're rolling here. What are we going to do here? And that's what we're going to get to practice actually here in a few minutes, is some of that intentional planning and looking at a concept of, okay, what are we going to do with these students when they don't get it? What are we going to do with these students when they really do get it? And having that intentionality thought behind it. Offer authentic learning opportunities. Yes. One of the biggest things we know our students ask, why am I learning this? What does this have to do with anything? Provide those authentic experiences. Make it real for them. Requires teachers to plan something different. Absolutely. Yep. It is not that. Yes, it does rely on communication with you and your students. You do have to talk to your students. You do have to engage with your students and understand their learning styles. Okay, another one on the student readiness. Absolutely. Okay, oh, yep, authentic. I notice a lot of these same ones being highlighted, which is great. So a lot of these things are standing out to us. And I'm almost everybody on here is highlighting things and what it does not. So we're recognizing a lot of things that it does not. So hopefully it does get a lot of those misconceptions for us.
All right, so we have given you a decent amount of information here. So now it's really like thinking about, where do I start? So if I have this assignment or this assessment or this project, and I want to think about how to differentiate it for my students, where do I start? So I'm going to share this in the Meet, but you can also look at it from your Pear Deck. So this is a template that we can kind of think about when we are really trying to start planning a differentiated lesson. So we're going to start over here in the top right-hand corner. So think about whatever lesson or activity or assignment you brought with you, or that you have in mind right now. So think about the key concept of that. And the first thing you're always going to want to do is identify what the student will know, or what they need to understand, or what are they going to do. From there, we're going to go down and we're going to pre-assess. Okay, and again, that doesn't have to be like a whole class long pre-assessment. It could be something really quick for you to figure out, where are students within that standard, so their readiness, what are their interests or motivations or backgrounds. And if you have those good relationships with students, you may already know that about them. And then their learning profiles, so same thing. Once we get to know our kids, we know which ones learn better in different ways. So using that pre-assessment data, we're going to move over to the start of our lesson. So how are we introducing this to students? So this is a common experience for the whole class, and you need to hook them in some way, okay? We just can't say, okay, today we're learning about World War II, and then be like, here's our assignment. So how are you going to hook them? How are you going to kind of get them engaged in what they're about to learn? And then we're going to start thinking about the differentiated activity. So I always like to think about, let's start kind of in the middle. So our kids who are on level, so that's going to be one of the activities. And then we can kind of go up or down a level, basically. So think about your enrichment group. So kids that are already, they know this stuff already. So how can we kind of push their learning even further? And enrichment doesn't always mean give more work. It just means let them dive deeper, let them explore a little bit more. And then the other way, so going back from on level. So think about maybe some of our ESL students or some of our SPED students. So how can we scaffold, how can we modify this assignment a little bit to better meet their needs? So it's not three completely different assignments. It might be small tweaks or different supports that you put in place to support those groups of students. Now, you may end up having more than 3 different groups, but this is kind of a good starting place.
So in just a
Mr.
second,
Jenkins, did you raise your hand?
I did.
What's up?
So just like the practical getting them into those 3 groups, what does that look like? Because I feel like they're going to be looking at all the other groups and they're going to be like, what is going on?
So using that formative assessment data definitely to group your students. And then is your concern that they have like completely different assignments and they're like, oh, what is this group doing?
No, my concern is just like how do you actually split them? Are you splitting them like physically into 3 different groups, or are you just saying, hey, if you
and it very well could be,
and this on or something like that?
Yeah,
it very
I think
well
it
could be
depends on
physically.
whatever the assignment is. So it could be something that they're doing in groups and you actually have these 4 kids together and these 4 kids together. Or it could be an individual assignment, but students who need some scaffolding for reading comprehension get version A of this assignment, and students who are on level get version B of this assignment, and students who need a little bit of enrichment or some different type of support get version C. So they may all look very similar and they may still be doing individually, but they may just get something a little bit different, or you work specifically with the group of students who needs a little bit extra.
And if I may, Dylan, good morning. You're the only one who has to know it's differentiated. Everybody doesn't have to know that. And when you're talking about the groups, it could be grouped just for you, for instructional purposes, for assessing purposes. But with the groups, you could have physically different groups where students know they're in different groups, but they may not know what others are doing. But the bigger thing with the differentiation is that you know which of the kids have the differentiated assignment. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
It could be kind of like stations, absolutely. But at the same time, it doesn't even have to be. It could be that, one group's getting an additional resource, or one group that you need to go give some extra attention to help them reach to that standard. Some of that differentiation could be, hey, I'm going to go and do some extra teaching with this group. They need a little bit more instruction. I got to build them up from here. Or, based on this pre-assessment, they need some pre-teaching of whatever's going on. So absolutely, it absolutely can be stations, but it doesn't always have to be. There's lots of different ways to do this. So in your pair deck, before and Ms. Wolf and I, we put the breakout groups up. I'll present them because I have them all on a Google thing with their codes. This differentiation rubric is a similar tool to the flow chart that Ms. Wolf just showed you, but for those of you who like lots of detail and getting into the weeds. So the flow chart is a very simplistic way of, hey, let me just kind of work through what we're doing here and I'm going to go this. For those of you who like a little bit more detail, a little bit more explanation, like to look at every little aspect, this one's a little bit better for you. And yes, Ms. Wolf, we did differentiate our resources to provide you. So this takes a look at, hey, how am I looking at rigor with my students, and what are the different ways that I can really look at rigor with my students to make sure that I'm hitting that in every area. So this is another tool that we can use. So is it relevant? What does that assessment thing look like? So it uses emerging, developing, and proficient as its areas. But really, if I was looking at this, I would say, okay, how am I building myself along this? What am I doing to support my students with rigor? Remembering rigor doesn't mean I'm giving the high kids 20 problems instead of 10. Because then the high kids just get frustrated. They go, well, I just did really well to get more work. More work doesn't engage the student. More work doesn't challenge their thinking. More work doesn't make them want to keep pushing and fight through things that are hard. It makes them say, well, I don't want to do this. If I get everything wrong, I have less to do. So I'm just going to go over there. So when you're thinking about rigor, what are you doing to really challenge and engage your students? And that's where that differentiation comes and makes it relevant to them. So when you go out into your groups and practice, here's, we're going to have about 10 minutes.
We went a little longer than we had planned. So maybe we're only going to have like 7 minutes, and it might just be some conversations about how you differentiate and how you can use these resources. Maybe even 6 minutes.
Right. But while you're in your groups, if you think about, if you brought in materials, if you thought about a particular lesson, you have a particular question, bring that up to your group. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. How, anybody have any ideas how this might work? I will say so Ms. Wolf, can I share our groups? That way I can just get people out. Yeah. So in your groups, we have 4 groups. Group 1, Miss Hannah, Miss Braswell, Miss Carter, I'm going to ask you to, if you're still able to join us, go with that group. That's our non-classroom teachers. So they're kind of grouped together to think about how they can support teachers and different things that they do when they observe teachers. Then group 2 is going to go to KHS N Taylor 2, group 3 to KHS N Taylor 3, and group 4, Mr. Peters, you're on the bottom of that group. Sorry, it doesn't show the whole group at once. You are just going to stay here. So we're going to go until 8:47 and then come back here. I'm already logged into all the groups, so I'll be able to also pop in and let y'all know when to come back. So 8:47, we will see you right back here.
Hey, Nick and Jessica, I have a meeting in 4 minutes. Do you still want me to pop in?
If you're able to and you'd like to participate, great. And if you're not able to, I love that you were able to stay this long. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again.
Absolutely. What's going on, gentlemen? Dotson had to run her kid over to the daycare thing, so she may be a minute or two late, make it or not make it. I would just have you two start the conversation.
But they're both good starting points for different reasons. To think about how to differentiate.
Sorry.
Hey y'all.
Hello.
Okay, so my understanding is we're discussing a lesson or whatever questions we may have.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I put the comment about it being more planning. I still don't feel like it's not more planning. But I think that pays off. So I'm okay with, dedicating a couple of minutes extra. But I mean, I think the column said it doesn't require you to plan something for every student, but it does require you to plan something for those different groups, which is still going to be something additional. And right now, I'm not interested in adding anything additional to my plate that's not going to pay off, but seeing how this could pay off for students, for instruction, for everything. I think that's really where my mental space is, my sanity. Don't add anything else to my plate. But this, again, like I said, this does sound like we've talked about differentiation forever.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we're actually digging into how to do it, not just that you should do it. So.
Right. I think I've always been one of the ones that would just, okay, well, Honor's just going to do 6 of these and everybody's going to do 4. And I was listening in on Ms. Bonds was in a meeting talking about differentiation yesterday. She was preparing for her PD that she's doing today. And they suggested doing even differentiating in a way that you have 4 breakout groups. Like one breakout group is for the kids that they want you to help them with extra stuff. They want extra support. And then having a group for kids who want to open their mics and their cameras and talk to each other. And then one for kids that just want to type in the chat but not have their mics on. And then have one for just silent work. If you don't need any support, you just want to work by yourself. And so she was talking about how differentiation can look like that as well, and giving them that student choice. And that way they can, one, have that sense of power and control over their education, but they don't feel forced to they have to participate in order to, get their needs across or to and so that was kind of, eye-opening. And I was like, that's cool. That's a cool method, because I always think of differentiation as I've got to do something for each student and go over and create all this new stuff. But in reality, it's also just giving them the option to, you can talk, or you can get assistance from me, or you can just do independent work, what works best for you. So
I feel like you would get 2 ends of the extreme though. You would get all of the kids who, I need help. And then all the ones that are leave me alone. I'm not going to do anything. And so I think that's a part of just letting go as a teacher and letting them make the decision.
That's kind of what I was going to say. I feel like part of the issue is a lot of the differentiation, at least I feel myself doing, leaves things to student choice, and especially with it being online. And so then a lot of the kids who need that extra help, I can't make you come to my office hour. I can't make you stay on during that. Because I normally, the way I end class is I'll have extra problems that I have, and I'll be like, okay, rate yourself 1 through 3. Okay, if you gave yourself a 2 or 1, stay on and do this problem. And I see kids leaving who should be staying on and doing that, and all they're a click away. So they just boop, done. Oh, I did my 45 minutes, done. So kind of seeing that. One thing that was nice, with that big list, is I feel we kind of do more differentiation than we give ourselves credit for sometimes. Just looking through those things, I do that, I do that, I do that. And I kind of agree with what Taylor was saying. It is going to add prep. There's no way it's not. And so kind of saying, okay, how much do I want to put in compared to how much I get out, which is what we tell the kids, oh, you're missing 10 assignments, pick the ones that are going to help you the most. And so it's how do we do that?
yeah, I think that's one of the things too, is it's been so much harder to differentiate with online platforms, just because it's when I'm walking around the classroom, I can see who physically see in person who's doing this. But when it's online, if I'm not doing a pear deck or a really interactive in the moment thing, and it's more based off of what they're doing during asynchronous time, then I've got to go back and make sure I'm looking through all of those things to then get that data to then influence my my work and stuff. And so it's with the online, not being able to go around and just see in the moment, or just put them in groups right then and there, or just have that one-on-one conference time. It's so much more difficult to do that. And so I think that's the main reason why I took this session today, because I was just I think in a normal setting, I do a lot of the things that were on that list, but it's so much harder to do a lot of those things now with the online.
I think one thing they used kind of remind me of is when I think it was, I don't remember if it was Nick or Jessica who said the idea that grades don't count as feedback. And I know I don't think I mess that up a lot. I think, okay, well, I graded all their assignments. I graded them that day, so they know how they're doing. But if they don't check grades, they don't. And that's something I think that difference between being online and being in person, because in person, if I gave a quiz and I didn't like the grades, I go over it with those kids, and they're more in front of me. Anyway.
All right, so welcome back, everybody. Since we are running short on time, because I do want you to have time to do the exit ticket and stuff. Nick, I think we should maybe skip this slide. I think everybody had some good conversation. in their groups. I know we did in our group, and it wasn't as much time as we had wanted to give y'all to be able to talk, but Nick and I are always available to further these conversations.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, please, we'll be happy to follow up with anybody that would like to further these. These are the conversations we truly love having. That was at the Pear Deck. I tried to put the Pear Deck pictures. Is this me or you, Miss Wolf? I'm sorry. And, oh, it's me. So these are just different resources that you have available to you. And again, these are not going to go away. We are recording this. You can click on any of them. There's probably a lot. We do have a KHS intervention website where all of these will land. So that will that might be a really good thing to bookmark, because all of these resources and a lot of resources will land on that KHS intervention website. There's also already a lot of things that people are doing for interventions that are on there with exactly how they're doing them and resources. And I don't want you to shy away from the PSYOP strategies one. Just because it says PSYOP strategies, that's really good for any student that's struggling to engage and connect with the content. And I found that to be a really good resource.
All right, so I know we are just about out of time, so I'm just going to get us to the
Thank you for your attention during the first session. I have a 10-minute break. We'll more than likely report to the commentary to enjoy.
We're trying.
Okay, now, 10-minute break, we will reconvene in PD Day and approximately in 10 minutes at 9 a.m. Thank you.
All right, well, we're trying to get y'all out of here. So we're going to do a launch, and then this is on student-based already, so you can go ahead to the exit tickets. But everybody is a genius. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So Peters did reference that earlier. All right, so for your exit ticket, there's going to be 2 quick slides within the Pear Deck. So we just want you to do a plus delta, and there's some little stems there, some things to think about for the plus delta. So this is really specific to our session and what we shared with y'all. And then on the 3rd slide is an exit ticket that will be the same that you will do for every session you attend today. So just trying to get some good school-wide feedback on the PD today. So we really appreciate y'all if you would just take the next couple of minutes to do that, and then you can head to your next session.
Or if you guys need to take a break, we could leave it open for a little bit, Miss Wolf, and that way, if you guys need to go take a break before your next session and kind of do it at the beginning of that too, that's fine. We know we ran over by a minute.
And we really appreciate y'all, your participation today. I feel like we need a little bit more time to get deeper into those conversations. But we are here for y'all, and if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you all. We appreciate it. Hopefully, we got you rolling today. Enjoy your next couple.